do it. I am Betty, and you're watching Modern Immigrant. Welcome everybody to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. Like every Monday, we have new episodes of an amazing immigration story or an immigration topic that we want to explore. And for today's episode, I couldn't be more excited because I have Adriana, which is the founder of Latinx Therapy. Adriana is a trauma psychotherapist and she's also a speaker from LA. And as I said before, she's the founder of Latinx Therapy, that if you do not know this amazing platform, you need to check it out. It's a community. She has a amazing therapy directory, and she also has a bilingual podcast where she touches the mental health topic in order to combat all the stigma that's around mental health, especially in the Latinx community. You can connect with Latinx Therapy and their services by looking them up on all social media platforms. There are as Latinx Therapy, and Adriana, you can find her as Latinx Therapist. Their services are amazing, and I encourage you to check them out and start a conversation about mental health. Remember that you can always subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. That always means a lot to us. Leaving comments if there's any questions or any other topics that you want us to touch on. You can also reach out our Instagram at Modern Immigrant or our website at modernimmigrant.net. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if it was helpful, please let us know and share it with someone else. Thank you so much, and I'll see you. Bye. Now, Adriana, welcome to Modern Immigrant. I'm really excited to have you here and we have the opportunity to connect.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here too.
Awesome. And to start, I would love for you to kind of share with the listeners what's Latinx Therapy if they don't know already.
Yes, so Latinx Therapy was founded in 2018 after I experienced being a year of being licensed and not finding any bilingual English and Spanish resources for my community. I was getting a lot of calls and I was actually really full in terms of client caseload, and I felt so bad for the people I was turning away. So I thought, maybe I can create some sort of resource in English and in Spanish for the people that are waiting for services. And I didn't want to do YouTube because although that was very popular in 2018, podcasts were up and coming at that time. And so I thought, well, I think a podcast feels very safe for me. And so I launched the Latinx Therapy podcast in March of 2018, and that went viral really quickly. And the purpose of that podcast is to, just like with anything else under Latinx Therapy, is destigmatize mental health in the Latinx community through Latinx voices and advocating for therapy and other ways of healing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's something that I really admire about what you have created, is that it started as a podcast, but it's really grown into a community and a place that it was clearly something that we needed as a Latinx community. It was a space where we felt like we weren't talking about things. And I feel like as a Latina, I can definitely tell that talking about mental health within our community, with our family, with our friends can be a taboo. And I wanted to ask you that because I kind of want to know how can we start the conversation, and I was actually interested to hear what took you to that field and that career. If it was something that you saw in your family or if it was something that you open up about, because I don't know, I feel like it's interesting to also learn from that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that I didn't realize that mental health existed. I knew therapy existed, but just automatically growing up, I assumed it was for white people or rich people or people with really, really, really severe psychological illnesses, like people that had chemical imbalances, or that's just what I had assumed growing up. Not that anybody was telling me. I think that's what I saw in the media. And so it wasn't until I got pregnant my first year at UC Santa Barbara that I experienced some of the worst depression in my life. And even during the pregnancy, I was extremely, extremely sad. I knew I was going to be a single teen mom. But after the pregnancy, I didn't know until much, much later that I was going through postpartum depression. And it was one of the darkest, I think the darkest moments of my life. It was super, super difficult being a student because I stayed on as a student, and I also enrolled at UCLA for the summer and a community college for the summer so that I could make sure that I graduated on time with my class. And so, I was functioning on the outside, but on the inside, I was not okay. And so it was really that experience and having a conversation with one of my professors who was a clinical psychologist who asked me, what was going on. And when he heard a little bit, when I opened up a bit, he told me that I should really talk to somebody because what I was going through was valid enough to make me depressed. And I never put that together. And when he said, you should talk to someone, you should go to speak with someone at the counseling center or get therapy, I just never, that never clicked as an option for me. And so I didn't stay in therapy for long because I stigmatized it myself. I got in a lot of trouble being pregnant, obviously, but I also got in a lot of trouble for telling my friend's mom first that I was pregnant because I was scared of telling my parents. And I remembered my mom's words of her saying, we keep this in the family. We always fix problems in the family. So being in therapy felt so wrong because I felt like I shouldn't be here. So I didn't stay for very long. But I really, really, really enjoyed those 3 sessions and just talking. Like, I got a lot of relief, although I got confusion. That was the point when I realized maybe I shouldn't be in, at that point, I was in communications. I was trying to major in communications. So I thought maybe I shouldn't do that. I should look into psychology. And so that's when it started.
That's pretty amazing to hear that kind of going for those 3 sessions was so powerful and actually kind of give you that desire to explore that field a little more. I think that's really wonderful. And I also think that it's really interesting to hear how sometimes we do need someone to tell us that that is an option. Like just knowing that going to therapy, reaching out, and getting help is an option. Sometimes that's all we need to hear in order to take that step. So I think that's why I really like that. I feel like the conversations are more common right now, at least what I'm hearing. It's a little more, yeah, we're trying to destigmatize this going to therapy. And there's a something that I struggle, and a lot of the immigrants that listen to the podcast struggle with, is finding services as immigrants or as a part of the Latinx community, because sometimes we don't want to share about what's happening in our life because we're worried, we're scared. There's the legal aspect, there's the cultural, right? Like, what if I'm talking to my therapist and that person does not understand my culture? So I just want to ask you first, how important is to open up those spaces for either immigrants or for minorities and different communities that need to have a therapy that can connect and understand them? And what's the impact of having or not having those?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a need. It's crucial for someone to be able to connect to their therapist, to the space that they're walking into, whether it's telehealth or in person. I know we're going through the pandemic right now, but it is just so important to connect with someone that understands your lived experiences. Maybe they don't have to have all of your identities, but they should relate to some of your identities to some extent. And we carry multiple identities. We are not just Latinx, you know. We carry so many others. Some of us are first gens, right? Some of us are parents. Some of us are etc. So I think that making sure that you kind of know what your identities are when seeking a therapist is crucial, because that's how you're going to be able to connect. Otherwise, you might end up teaching, the
Mm-hmm.
therapist about your traditions, your culture, your identity, what it means, what it is, why it's important to you. And that just, I mean, there's I think some people enjoy doing that, but a lot of people that I know don't, because then it just feels like the therapist is just fascinated with you and you're just giving, you're just teaching and teaching, and where is the processing happening? So there's more rapport that's built when we both can say, yeah, I understand. And the therapist has already conceptualized, what it is that you're going through and can provide tools for those experiences collaboratively. So I think that it's a huge impact in a positive way. And I think I touched upon a little bit of the way that it impacts negatively, in that it's just difficult to trust. It's more difficult to connect. It's lengthier as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's already hard for some people to reach out to get help, it's probably really hard to get into a session and have to explain themselves in that way. And I really like that you said that it is okay that there's a level of connection, but also, other stuff that it's not going to be always like, my therapist understand all of my, because that's just impossible, right? We're complex and we're different. So I think that's really important. And somebody recently, I heard someone saying on social media, this was a psychologist, a professional as well, that was saying that she was concerned about people talking about mental health so easily over social media, about mental health matters or mental health and the impact in different areas. And I just want to ask you, because you're also a professional in the field and you have created an amazing community, what do we need to be careful about when we're hearing information about mental health on social media? Because in a way, I think it's great that we're talking about it, right? It's great that we're not seeing it as such a taboo. But I also understand that some people are giving advices and maybe they're not qualified to do so. So how can we kind of identify that?
That's so important, and such a thing right now, because yes, I do find getting confused in knowing, like, okay, so which account is coming from a licensed professional and which one isn't, and I think that transparency and that is so important. um, Not because it'll, invalidate the person. I think that every founder of every social media account has a story to tell and things that they can share based off of their experiences. But it's important to be transparent about that, where the information is coming from, right? On my Twitter, I like to put, sometimes, like, because I different accounts are for different things. Like right now, my TikTok, I'm talking about trauma in the brain more so, and behind the scenes Latinx therapy stuff versus clinical things, because that's more so where, I provide psychoeducation on my Instagram account, and on my Twitter it's just my random thoughts. So I make sure that I say, this is anecdotal, this is based off of my personal experience, porque then, people come at me like, where's the study in that?
And you're like, this is
So
me, mine. Yeah,
yeah, from
yeah,
what I've seen.
right.
So, there's that point where I think it's important, but I also think it's important for clinicians to be very careful when we're giving tips, because people will run with it. People are craving to heal. And some of these things can be very, very harmful for them if they are not, for example, in a safe environment, or have never tapped into what they're trying to heal through self help work. And I think a lot of these Instagram accounts, whether they come from a professional mental health therapist, or just a mental health professional, or a non mental health professional, can still cause harm. And so I think disclaimers and transparency, and people, just taking everything that you see with a grain of salt, is very important. Or ask questions. Whoever is posting about this, ask them about what they mean, or if they suggest it, or what do they suggest for someone in your situation, right? And if you don't get a response, then maybe don't, follow up with the tips, because I've been seeing some really, really deep things on social media, and it's just, they can be red flags sometimes. And I'll admit that recently I did a reel that I didn't expect to kind of go a little baby viral,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about like 300,000 plus views. and it talks about trauma symptoms. Um, I talk about hypersensitivity to noise, and I think a lot of people connected to the four things. But the four things, like hypersensitivity to noise, large gaps in memory, um, unable to rely on others, right? These things can be very, very common for other issues, not just trauma as well. And so I did clarify in the description, but I realized not a lot of people are reading that. They're just going based off of the reel, because I think that's what it shows in the Discover. So now, as I'm commenting, I'm making sure that I educate people and let them know, you know, it's possible it's not from trauma. It's possible that it's from something else. But speaking with a mental health professional to get a proper assessment is important, because the social media platforms are not a place to get a diagnosis.
Right. And it's interesting what you're saying, because even if the information is accurate, the form, like, that we read on a Reels or a TikTok or a post is so short and it's so limited, right? Like, it's hard for the professional to also expand into the whole explanation. It's like, yeah, we need to be really careful and say, okay, this could be, let me do some more research, right? This is a great platform to, I feel what I like about social media and reading accounts like yours is like it gives us that opportunity to think and say, this is going on. This is a symptom. Maybe, like, I recently read something about working, like this workaholic behavior can be a trauma response, right? But I feel like I immediately didn't say, oh, I have, you know what I mean? I was just like, this is interesting to think about and to do more research or to talk to my therapist about. So I think, thank you for saying that, because the people that are criticizing that, I think, are also not taking the person as serious, right? Like, we can do research, we can ask, and we should do that always. And Adriana, always, yeah. I'm really interested to hear, how can we, like, I know the Latinx therapy community is a great place as a resource to find options, but where can we find services if we're immigrants or if we are part of the Latinx community or not, someone listening, but they might feel like they don't have where to go? If there's no diversity in the counselors, or if there's no access to health insurance, or if there's just fear, where do you think it's a good place to go to start that search?
Another great question. So, I did create the directory, latinxtherapy.com, and there's still a lot to work on. One is that my directory it's great, but mostly great for people that can pay privately, right? Even if that's on a sliding scale basis. So I know that there are some pitfalls to it, and I'm trying to work on that. It's very difficult also finding free and low income resources as well. But it's something on my mind every single day, and something that I'm trying to fill in the gap with as well. So latinxtherapy.com, we are all Latinx therapists. And if you go on there and if you find someone in your state, you must find someone in your state that you vibe with their profile, but yet you see the price and you're like, ugh, don't hesitate in still messaging them and asking them either, what are your sliding scale rates and who qualifies? Or do you have any pro bono slots, right? Pro bono slots meaning free therapy slots. We can't advertise that necessarily, because sometimes some people don't need that and do take advantage of it. So I just recommend for anyone that needs that, any therapist on any directory, don't shy away from asking that.
Yeah.
And every therapist also offers a free 15, 20, 25, 30. Everyone has a different range, but a free 15-minute consultation. And that is where you can also interview the therapist to see if you connect with them. But I know that right now, another organization, this one is a nonprofit called Immigrants Rising. They are offering free therapy services to undocumented folks.
Yes.
And so I think that they're wonderful, and they're also recruiting therapists who can provide free services as well. So they are an amazing resource. And I don't know of others right now, but I know that For Black immigrants, there's the
Mhm.
Loveland Foundation, and they offer scholarships basically for therapy. And the National Queer, I forgot what their acronym stands for, but they are also offering right now a therapy fund.
Okay.
Um, so those are some resources. But yeah, it's the National Queer and Trans Therapist of Color Network.
Okay.
I recommend for everyone to also do a Google search to see which nonprofits are in your area, mental health nonprofits, because they will most likely have grants um, that require them to provide free services. And yes, the therapist may be in training, but they are being supervised by a licensed clinician. So, I mean, that's what I did when I got started. I was doing free therapy services for sexual assault survivors at a local community agency here in California. It's still going, called Strength United, and they're great and they have different programs. So check out what is being offered in your community. Local universities also offer some offer free therapy sessions to the community. Not all, but your documentation status does not matter for these services anywhere.
That's really good to know, and to know that that's not a thing that should stop you from seeking help. I work in a nonprofit, but in the substance use area for as a counselor for substance use disorders, and I see I'm the only Spanish speaker in the agency, and I see the need that you were talking about at the beginning. I see the amount of requests of people saying I need a Spanish speaking only counselor. So I think they are slowly opening, like we are seeing more spaces now, like the fact that you mentioned already, it was a really a long list compared to what we had in the past. um, so I think that's a positive aspect, and I think that the same as I'm seeing the requests is that you're seeing it, that you're seeing in your community, and you have all Latinx therapists. It's telling us that there are people out there that can help you and that can support you, and that will connect with you, maybe not 100%, but that's part of the process. And Adriana, I do want to ask you, what's what's a message that you would like to kind of share with those that are listening that might be struggling and don't know what to do? Maybe the taboo is too big, maybe they're scared that counseling won't be a solution. What's something that, I don't know, you can share with them?
You know, the truth is, in regards, if you think that counseling won't be a solution, is that it shouldn't be the only thing that you're trying to do, for yourself. Most of the time as a therapist, I do have to have my clients engage, with some other social support. That's really, really important. So with that, I just want to say that it's important for you to find community, whether they are, local or it's digital or somewhere else in another country. It's so important for us as we are healing to find people that we can relate to, and to know that you are not alone. As cliche as that is, it's really, really true. um, you're always welcome to reach out to me, preferably by email, because my DMs are crazy. And there are many other people like myself that are willing to connect you to a resource. We do our very, very best to find something that'll work, or to help you, understand what you need to ask your insurance when you're seeking out for services if you have insurance. So I want you to feel like you have someone in your corner. I want you to reach out. Maybe if you're not ready for one-on-one therapy, think about support groups. Think about, there's other, you don't have to do a clinical support group. Mental Health America offers peer-led support groups, which are also beautiful. So I'll provide these resources for you, for anyone listening that wants to just give this a try. And I really recommend it. I know that we grew up with a lot of stigma, but it's consider it as something to explore, something to be curious about.
Yeah, I like that, to give it a try. And I can add all of those links and resources to the description of this episode so people can go and check it out. I have seen how, how do we need it? And I speak with immigrants, and I know that we experience changes, and it doesn't have to be, you know, I think, as we were saying, like, we thought that mental health was, for this type of people, for this specific disorders. But really, if you're struggling, like, immigration can be really tough, and or being a first generation immigrant as well. So I feel like having resources is key. And Adriana, there's a question that I always ask at the beginning of the interviews, and I know this interview is a little different because I wanted to focus on the mental health piece, but I do always ask my guests, how has their life been touched or impacted by immigration? And I love to ask you that, if there's an immigration story behind you, either yourself, your parents, that you would like to share with us.
Absolutely. I really admire my parents. They are immigrants. I am a daughter of immigrants, proud daughter. And they, I believe, came here around when they were 18 years old. And their diligence, their hard work, and them being in survival mode ultimately as an act of love for us, truly taught me what it is to love, what it is to be united with family. And I understand that there's some harm, that was also done emotionally with those acts of love, but I'm choosing to see the picture of how they really raised us to be connected to one another, and to do whatever it is that we wanted to dream of. Anything that we wanted to do, they told us, we are here so that you can fulfill your dream. And those words have just stuck with me since I was a little girl, since kindergarten. And so I do whatever it is I want to do in life and my career, knowing that they're willing to support my wild ideas, and that I'm fulfilling their wishes along with doing that too.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. It gave me chills, because I think those are really powerful words, and I think the admiration for immigrant parents is huge. And I know, as you said, sometimes we carry those kind of difficult things that we saw, right? That was hard, that was survival mode, and that was things that, sometimes we didn't get to choose. But the fact that now we have the opportunity to create the life that we want based on their efforts, I think is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking. Thank you so much, Veronica.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this time and this space, and I'm sure that people listening are gonna find it really, really helpful. So again, thank you so much for your time. I will make sure I leave all the links, but if you want to share with us where can we connect with you, that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, so I have 2 social media Instagram accounts. All my handles on every single platform: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram is at Latinx Therapy. And then on Instagram, my personal one is at Latinx Therapist.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so that is where you can find me, and you can visit the directory at latinxtherapy.com, terapiaparalatinos.com, and yeah, that's the directory, and where the podcast can also be found.
Awesome. And the podcast, how often you release episodes?
I should be releasing weekly right now. I'm pausing until April to bring back in the season 4. So
awesome.
If you haven't heard, there's plenty to binge on.
Perfect. I like that. I like to binge on episodes, and I think it's a great resource too, to listen to stories, even if people are not ready to go to therapy yet, if they don't feel they're right there. I always say that resources like podcasts can be great just to listen to either stories or a professional talking about a specific topic. So thank you for creating such a huge platform. Thank you for creating so many resources for the community.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.